to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, where I am your host and we are your resource for education, connections, and collaborations to support you on your wellness journey. And I want to start by thanking our sponsors, Robert Tettero from Mana Life Source, Vibe, and BAM Metrics, for it's these sponsors that makes Mindful Mondays possible. So, Robert is a seasoned expert in stress and burnout prevention, and he merges unique modalities from diverse cultures to help entrepreneurs and business owners achieve a state of stress-free success. His transformative approach combines Mindshift Transformation, shamanic teachings, and conscious energy breathing, allowing you to deprogram old habits and build a fresh foundation for success. So, Robert, welcome and thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Great. So tell me, what compelled you to become a seeker on the journey of personal transformation and healing?
That's a great question, because I actually believe it was my life's journey. As a young kid, I was very morose, real nostalgic. I had this very deep sense of sadness and not belonging. So I was always asking questions, and I really didn't know what I was good for, and I never felt I belonged. So that's really where the quest started. Was always asking, always trying to figure out what I was doing here. And later, I didn't even know what to study. I didn't like school. Uh, then it was by some miracle I got through high school, and then it was like, well, what are we going to do now? Well, I didn't want to work, so I just decided, well, I'll study business and get a bachelor's of business administration. So I went to university. And then when I got that in my pocket, I was like, what are we going to do next? And it just didn't stop there. I just kept going on and on and on, trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing here.
Wow. Yeah, and I think a lot of us often wonder that, or some of us are following someone else's path, but it's not truly our path. So, how long did this journey take? I mean, yeah, can you
You
expand
know,
on that a little bit?
I really wish I had peers around me. I really wish I had people to tell me what to do and give me a sense of direction. But I really had to figure this out on my own because I really felt that nobody understood me. The things that were going on underneath were yeah, it was so, yeah, I don't know how the word, it was so pervasive that it just kept me continuously busy looking for a way out because it was all about something that I felt inside but somehow couldn't grasp. So that's what really triggered that seeker in me.
Wow. So can you share then maybe with us some pivotal moments that shaped your understanding of the stress and burnout prevention? I mean,
Right.
how did this journey go to get you where you're at?
Yeah, that's interesting because, well, then I got through college, and then, well, you're supposed to get a job, so I did. I started working as a management consultant, and I ended up working for a huge multi-million dollar project in a steel mill in Luxembourg for none other than Berlusconi, the minister president of Italy, who is also a rich entrepreneur who owned one of the biggest soccer teams in Italy.
Wow.
So there I was, as a green pea, working in a steel mill, working like 50 hours a week. And one day, the CEO of the company calls me into his office and he says, Robert, what do you want from life? I, I literally choked up. I didn't know what to say. And he kept repeating this question over and over and over again. And I just couldn't find anything sensible to say. And finally, because he kept pressing and I noticed I wasn't breathing either,
Hmm.
the only thing that sort of popped out of my mouth was I just want to be happy. And then he looks at me and he says, well, then what are you still doing here? So,
Wow.
so I was burning out there already. You know, I was, I ran after one of the huge steel racks one early morning on a morning shift, and I was feeling so nauseated, and I threw up, feeling so bad, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And all the management consultants were there for their own bonuses. There was nothing at all uh, to mention about collaborating together. So it was just crazy. So I did take his advice and I quit, but I didn't know what else to do. So from job to job to job, and I kept hitting that same feeling. This is not it. This is not it. This is not it. So finally, I decided I need to make a drastic change. I needed to get out of Europe because I felt that the European culture that was so predominant, everybody that, yeah, was so very much, um, yeah, very much, yeah, all about culture. The Italian culture, everything is, so culture dominated.
Hmm.
Very, very much people very much stuck uh, in their cultural conditioning, and I just felt the weight of it all. I lived in Athens, I lived in Rome, I lived in Paris, I lived in all the major European cities, and it felt so oppressed. And walking through Rome, for instance, I could actually feel. And that's when I found out I was, clairsentient, apart from being clairvoyant.
Hmm.
I could feel the Roman Empire, and the battles. And I would spend so much time around the Colosseum where they would throw, well, they had the gladiators fighting each other and people being thrown to the lions. I could feel that oppressive energy and the wars waged in Europe. It was just too much to bear. And I sold all my stuff. I gave away what I couldn't sell. I paid off my debts. I bought a ticket to the States. And that's when my journey actually started. But to cut a long story short, my brother came to visit me in the States. I ended up living in the States for 7 years. And that's when I really did some serious soul searching, where I really found myself. And I also told myself, I'm not going back into the world until I had found who I am, the answers to the questions of who am I? What am I supposed to be doing here in this world? And where am I going when I leave the body? Those were those three essential questions that I asked myself. And I promised myself I would not return until I had found the answers. And it took me 7 years, to be honest. But on one occasion, my older brother, he came to visit me in San Francisco. And he's like, hey, do you want to have a shiatsu massage at the Kabuki Center? And I was like, yeah, I've never had a shiatsu massage, don't know what it is. Yeah, sure. And I went, and she massacred me. I was in so much pain. I was 30 at the time.
Wow.
And she wasn't even working hard on my body, but she was just pressing on those meridians where she saw that I had energetic blocks. And I walked out of there, almost crippled. And I remember thinking, I'm this young and I have so much pain in my body. She didn't create the pain, it was the pain that I had in my body. So that's when I started thinking of stress and burnout, that I'd been carrying all this stress and it had been accumulating over so many years and hadn't done anything with it. Because what do we do? Well, our body is the vehicle in which we experience life. So everything goes through the experience of our body, and everything that we deal with, we accumulate in our body. And everything we don't know how to deal with gets stuck in our body. So that was the pain. And I had enough sense to know, okay, I really need to do something here because, physically I was completely broken.
Yeah, so I want to say there's just a few amazing things in there for me. For one, I think it's rare. I have never come across a boss that says, "What do you truly want to do?" So the fact that you had someone that does that,
Yeah,
um, but the fact that maybe you didn't realize it. I don't know if you realized it at the time, but you actually were following kind of an intuition. You're obviously, like you said, clairsentient. You're sensitive to these things, and not everybody realizes that or recognizes that. And then to take it further, so you got yourself out of that environment, you went to see somebody. Most people would just stop seeing that person because they would think, oh, that person put me in so much pain, I'm worse now than when I got there. But you were able to recognize that it wasn't what she did. She was pointing out how much pain it was in your body.
exactly. Exactly. And by the way, I had decided that because I was in San Francisco like for 6 years, about every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks for 6 years, I went to the Kabuki Center to continue working on my body, to doing body work.
Wow.
Meanwhile, I also got involved in my shamanic path, which was really what spurred me to go to the United States in the first place. It was through the books of Carlos Castaneda. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's an anthropologist who studied at the University of UCLA. And for his thesis, he wrote about his experiences with a North American shaman, brujo uh, from northern Mexico. And I picked up those books, and he wrote about 14 books of his experiences with this brujo medicine man called Don Juan.
Huh.
And I ended up in the Southwest most of the 6, 7 years that I was there, in the same region where these stories of Carlos Castaneda took place. Now, I do want to mention there's a lot of controversy of the writings of Carlos Castaneda because, of course, there were a lot of people that wanted to disprove that he had any contact whatsoever with a shaman because he had never revealed who this man was. Uh, the thing is, I had experienced exactly things that Carlos Castaneda was writing about when we talk about experiencing a separate reality, seeing things beyond the ordinary, all these things he was writing about. So it resonated, and I knew that there was truth in what he was writing. And that's what spurred me actually to go to the United States.
So is that how you discovered your shamanic roots?
Yeah,
Was Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So how has that played a role in your approach to coaching? Because I know you now you spend a lot of time coaching and helping others to get to that space.
Well, that's really the interesting thing. Well, for one, it helped me to shift my awareness. By and large, we've all been conditioned by the way we were raised, but it goes beyond that. I talked about family conditions,
Mhm.
cultural conditioning, religious conditioning, specific negatives in your life, uh, past lives, if you do have past life recall, uh, a parental approval and disapproval syndrome, sibling rivalry. If that isn't enough, you have to deal with birth trauma, which is another big aspect of what I am helping people with, is figuring out their life stress birth script. It's actually the way we were born reflects the way we're operating in life. If we are struggling during birth, guess what? It becomes our blueprint. We're forever struggling in our life because that's the way we came into the world. And that's the way we continue to think we have to express ourselves. We call that limbic imprinting or cellular imprinting.
Okay.
So we're stuck in that blueprint until we realize that we are. And the next step is to start freeing yourself of all these things I mentioned that we were conditioned by, to be able to get all our energy back to the here now, because it's lost in all these experiences of our past, the way we were raised, the sum total of everything you inherited as well. It's just unbelievable. So a very large part of my work has been to recapitulate my life, to draw my energy back out of the uh, the past, and to withdraw all my energy of my fear and worries of the future, to be able to navigate all my obstacles in the here now. And it's a matter of energy and shifting your awareness. So, how do I help people? Well, one is help them shift their awareness. That's that mindset transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all know, and it's like mainstream, since also the movie of what was it called? The Secret,
Yep.
where they're promoting a creative thought, and we all know, yes, we create our reality on the basis of our thoughts, but it goes far beyond that. Because yes, if we all know that we create our reality on the basis of our thoughts, then why am I still struggling, right? So that's just on the surface, but we need to go into our cellular imprinting and limbic conditioning. And a large part of that is to shift our awareness, which means one of my first things that I have to do is get people to understand that what is important is to get into the right mind. Because otherwise, the only thing we're doing is we're talking from what we know, what we've experienced, right? We're just
Right.
looking through the glasses that we were conditioned by. So it really holds true, sorry, when we say we only hear what we want to hear, right?
Right.
And I can only perceive what I have learned, and by the way I have been conditioned. So the first thing I have to do is sort of get them loose from their own conditioning, to get them in the right mind, because otherwise the only thing they'll be doing when I'm having a discussion with them is they're actually only justifying what they believe, right?
Right.
Especially when they're like, oh yeah, I know, yeah, no, I know this. I said, no, you don't know this. Knowing means applying it and incorporating it into your life. That's when you can say I know. And not, until then you don't know. But it's like your mind, your ego mind, that's just selling you half truths. Yeah, I know, so I don't have to do anything about it.
Yeah, I've always said the mind is pretty much the most powerful tool that we have. You have people that say, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm like, "Well, then you're right, because you've already told yourself you can't. You can do anything you set your mind to." So essentially, you do a lot of mindset work with your clients and coaching and helping them, and you're actually, if I'm understanding you correctly, helping them get rid of the blueprint that they were born with or that's imprinted, and create a whole new one, create a
A
whole
whole
new
new one,
blueprint.
exactly. A whole new, to create a whole new foundation on which you build a whole new life. It's like reinventing yourself, recreating yourself. But we're so fearful of doing that because, well, it's also a threat to the ego. Well, look, the ego says, you've used me and I've helped you survive all this time. Now you're saying you want to do without me? It's like, no, I don't think so. We're going to do it the same old way that we're used to doing it, because that works. No, no, it doesn't work. You're in a big mess, but we're more comfortable in the mess than letting it go and jumping into the unknown.
Yep, it is the definition of insanity. Doing the same
Exactly.
thing over and over and expecting a different result. It does
Right,
not work.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's so true.
Wow. No, so we're going to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, but I know you have more to share with us about how some of your shamanic teachings have influenced your practice, your methodology, some of the things that you use with your clients, and how we can get people to recreate their new blueprints. So stay with us. We will be right back, and we're going to dive more into that.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No boson. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
Are you ready to break free from stress and achieve success without the burnout? Then join my free masterclass on stress-free success. Discover proven strategies to balance your personal and professional life, regain energy, and unlock your full potential. It's time to stop surviving and start thriving. So reserve your spot now on one of the possible dates at manalifesource.com/home2, because success doesn't have to come at a cost. Stress less, live more, succeed effortlessly, and I'll see you at the masterclass.
So, Robert, with the shamanic teachings that you've learned, how does that influence your practice and your methodologies when you're working with clients?
That's a good one. Apart from the fact that I also do body work, I've learned different kinds of healing modalities, and I worked with a traditional healer from the Hopi tribe for more than 16 years, and so I was taught many different things there. But what's really important when it comes to shamanic teachings is, first of all, understanding that what we call alternative medicine today is not alternative at all. That's always been the way it was. My grandmother, who came from Java, Indonesia, was a herbalist. She used herbs for everything. She even helped all her daughters give birth to their children. My mom was into that. She would always create these concoctions that were just terrible, but I would drink that. But I would not take any form of petrochemical drugs, derivative drugs that were just not natural. So I approach every person in a holistic way. We can work on the emotional level, but it's also good to work on the body, to look at your lifestyle. And then specifically when it comes to shamanic teachings, in shamanism we say the world is an illusion. The world is a dream. That doesn't mean that the world isn't real. We're only saying that your dreams are real. We are dreaming everything into being. We're experiencing a three-dimensional holographic reality, in this physical body. So we have to understand what really the nature of reality is. Because when we're only stuck to what we think we see out here, then we're not going to get it. We have to really go within through self-reflection and becoming more aware. When you talk about free will, do we really have free will? And in general, I would say no. No, we don't. Not until you become more aware, of your generational influences. I believe strongly, and science is proving that we can also change our DNA on the basis of our thoughts. That's all shamanic. uh, native people already had all this knowledge. It's what is now being uncovered by the uh, by scientists.
Yeah, I like how you put that, because it's true. We call it alternative medicine, we call it holistic medicine, but really it's the original. It's been around for thousands of years.
Exactly.
It's just not what our society has pushed at us.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the medical establishment has turned it into alternative, but it's not. So to help them understand the nature of reality is really of big importance. It ties into creative thought as well. We can't change anything in the outside world because what we're perceiving depends on how we were conditioned to think. So that's why, again, a large part of the work is about helping them understand that the power is within. The true power is within. But where within? Yes, you need to conceive it in your mind. If you don't conceive it in your mind, it won't matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. However, as long as what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, and what I'm experiencing is not in alignment, then something is going on. And what is going on that's preventing me from creating what I want, of bringing it into alignment, is my subconscious conditioning. And that's where I take them on a really beautiful journey to uncover that blueprint so that, the first step is, oh my God, oh, I had no clue, those kinds of things. I'll give you an example. And I discovered this through another element of healing modality that I discovered. That was breath work. The original name for it was rebirthing. I called it conscious energy breathing or conscious connected breathing because I don't like breath work because I don't believe in work.
There
Right?
you go. Yeah, good point.
It shouldn't be work. But just a small example. Just shortly before my birth, my mom fell with me. She fell off the stairs. She fell on our belly. I turned in the womb and I almost died in the womb.
Wow.
And the doctor actually saved my life. So guess how that influences me in my life? Every single time that I was short of giving birth to whatever it was, finishing high school, finishing college, getting my CD on the market, now the same thing is threatening to occur of launching my book, is that it almost always risks failing. I'm short of killing the project, and then I shelve it, my CD, I shelved it for a year until finally something happened where I freed it up and I was able to finish the project. But those kinds of things, that has everything to do with what happened during the last phases of my birth. It's just unbelievable. So when we're not aware of this, another really beautiful example is a client of mine. He was sent to me by his company, and he had problems because he felt that people at work were treating him really bad, and that he felt misunderstood, and that they didn't like him. I was already at the 10th session. I was like rounding up his trajectory with me, the program, and somehow I felt we're still not getting there. So I started bombarding him with questions, and I kept asking and I kept asking because I wanted to figure out. I don't want him to leave, out of the door without getting the results that I promised he would get. So I saw him getting more and more irritable, and at some point he screams at me. He says, "You don't understand. They don't understand how much they're hurting me." And I was like, "Oh my God." I said, "Were you forceps?" He's like, "Forceps? What the hell does that have to do with it?" I said, "Call your mom. Call your mom." "I don't know." What does that have to do with it? So he calls his mom. He said, Mom, was I forceps? He says, yeah, how do you know? Well, this guy in front of me is telling me I was, you know. But the first moments where he experienced a human touching him was such a trauma. He was traumatized that for the rest of his life, the imprinting was that people hurt me. So his whole life, he's been walking around sensitive to anybody that could trigger that response. But the trigger response is actually that part of his soul, I would say, trying to heal him from this thing. But there was nobody that could tell him.
Wow.
It's just unbelievable.
That is
So
amazing how that, yeah, how that translates into that. So tell me, I mean, you mentioned that, you have that fear or whatever that comes up that can kind of cancel things. Since your modalities and what you've learned, do you stay more aware of it? Does it catch you by surprise every now and then? Or are you more aware of it where you know that, nope, this is just this showing up and I need to push through?
it's like I don't need to push through anymore. But it's interesting you're saying push through because that's what we did during birth, right? We have to
Right.
push through. We don't have to do that anymore because you're just not under the influence of it anymore. But you can feel the energy. Oh, this is my birth energy again, or oh, this is the part where I was conditioned not to trust authority anymore, right? And where normally speaking, I would have like created a boundary or pulled back or not told the truth or whatever response I had in the past, you just recognize it immediately and you just have one big smile because you remember how you used to react to it. Now you you have all the tools to navigate all these obstacles with such ease and so much pleasure because you've learned how to deal with it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, because that's a whole different perspective and it takes it deeper, because I was always under the impression a lot of it came with, like you said, upbringing, the influences in school, friends, climate, environment, everything. But what you're sharing with us is it really actually started before that.
Before that, and in fact, you can ask yourself the question, uh, why would children have to suffer leukemia? You know, why? Why are children at birth given away for adoption? All these kinds of things. Can we make any sense of it? Is there anything beyond what we can see and realize that if there is a bigger picture, then maybe, and if we are able to see that bigger picture, which is what I help people do, then maybe you can live with it. You can deal with it more appropriately.
Wow. So, in your opinion, what makes the conscious energy breathing a powerful tool for deprogramming old habits and patterns?
That's the beautiful thing. It overrides the mind. These are things that you cannot resolve on a conscious level. You can't, because the imprinting is in your subconscious conditioning. When I say subconscious, it means you're not aware of it. I have people come to me and I ask them several questions. I want to do a little intake to get a sort of a general idea where they are and what their challenges are. And I might ask, you still have any issues, mom or dad? And they're like, no, I've dealt with mom. It's all over. It's done with. All fine and well. And when they get into a breathing session, this one businessman, within 5 minutes, he started weeping. I mean, he started sobbing. Mom, mommy, he's just crying away. I thought it was done with. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I guess not.
So, but how does that actually bring that up and trigger that? Do you
Well,
able to
because
explain?
that's why I call it energy breathing, because everything we haven't really dealt with, we think we might have dealt with it on a conscious level, but the body has its own functions and system of dealing with things. The para and the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, or that one where we create dopamine and the every the relaxing hormones. But um, when we are dealing with things on a physical level that we haven't dealt with, we repress it. And how do we repress it? By way of shutting off our breath. We're not even aware of it. And I really dare put my hand in the fire when I say that 95% of people aren't breathing properly. Either they're breathing too much or either they're breathing too little. They're subventilating. It's really remarkable. So the more unresolved issues that we're repressing, the more we're holding our breath. And what does that mean when I'm holding my breath? I'm stifling my energy. We're holding on to our energy, but energy needs to flow. But what we're doing is we're repressing it. So it's like a pressure cooker, right? We keep repressing it more and more and more and more until at some point, and that point will come, undoubtedly, even if it's during your last phase of your life when you're on your deathbed, you will be confronted with everything that you have not dealt with, no matter what. And I've experienced that with people passing over. And then, they have to hurry up. They don't have much time. And that they realize with so much regret that they've missed a lot of opportunities to do that. So this very gentle, very, very gentle, loving, easy, circular and connected breathing rhythm starts moving the energy. And while you're breathing, you'll feel like this tingling sensation, and you might feel on very specific points in your body, you might feel these blockages, you know? And if you're a little bit aware, then you'll know what these blockages are actually about. My son, everything that I stood for was taboo. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. But he's a free runner. So at one point I said to him, that's how I actually caught him.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what? You will improve your free running by 60% if you come and do some breath work with me. And he's like, oh, okay. I got his attention. So he did. And his very first session, he looked at it very scientifically. And he felt all these blockages where, when he's free running, he felt the strain on his on his muscles and some of the jumps he was making. So he was immediately able to translate where he was holding all this stuck energy. And while you're feeling that, actually, anything you're feeling during a session is what your body is actually dissolving. So you don't even have to know what it's all about. It's not even that important, because you know that your body is just releasing that on an energetic level, right? And a muscular level and on a cellular level, to free yourself of any blockages related to anything at all that you haven't dealt with in your past.
Well, and really that makes sense what you were saying, because if you've ever been to, well, first of all, when you're in pain, or if you've been to a massage therapist, I've been to a massage therapist, and when they hit those points where it's pain, you feel pain, my first reaction is always just like, hold my breath. But
Right.
they always tell you to breathe. And
Breathe
if you
through it.
breathe through it, even when they did like dry needling or something, we're like, breathe. And when you can breathe through it, although sometimes it's difficult, it's kind of like a mind over matter. But if you can breathe through it, the pain really is not as intense. But for whatever reason, you have like this sudden reaction to want to just hold your breath and like get through it until it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. And breathing is ancient. It's ancient. It's used in all yogic practices, in all the martial arts, in tantric practices, all meditation practice. It's ancient, but it was lost to Western civilization, and it was brought back to the world in the 70s by pioneers like Leonard Orr and Sonra Ray. And I had the blessing to have met Sonra Ray myself and assisted her uh, for a little while. So being in the presence of somebody that's, got a pretty strong energy force, just in her presence, all your stuff is going to come up for healing.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
So
you can't hide anything.
would you like to share with people, our audience here, what the difference is? Because we all think we're breathing just fine, but then yet if we were, I don't think we would have half as many people on oxygen or CPAP machines and stuff as we do now.
Yeah. Um, well, again, right? One of the exercises I'll give your whole audience is to start from now on to start observing your breath. Now that alone is difficult because you're just going to go through the day and not think about it at all. Okay, well then say to yourself, I'm just going to take any time of the day about 2 minutes to observe my breath. But if you can, start noticing your breath. And I don't want to say too much because then it will take some of the fun away. But, just notice what's going on and at what moments you are breathing and what moments you're not breathing. And are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing through your nose? And there are many, many different kinds of ways to breathe. And they all have a different function. So not one is better than the other, but you have to know what you're going to apply and when you need to apply it. And
So if you're not breathing, you would say they are basically in fight or flight. There's something stressing or something wrong if you find
absolutely,
yourself not breathing.
absolutely, yeah, you're going to immediately hold your breath. I mean, notice when you give somebody a compliment, they'll hold their breath because they're actually blocking the compliment.
Because we're
They're
not used to
not.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For many
You
of us,
know,
we're not used to that, and it sometimes is, for whatever reason, difficult to accept.
yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Well, they obviously didn't think they were worthy of a compliment, that they didn't deserve, you know, a compliment or to be recognized and to be acknowledged.
Right, which would dig into further, like as to why do you feel you're not worthy? Right.
Yeah, correct. And I take them on that journey. I uncover what I call emotional signatures, where in your past, with a specific person in a specific experience, something happened where you decided something that you're just not conscious of anymore.
Right.
You
So, can you
know,
explain to us a little bit the concept of Mindshift transformation and how it can benefit individuals dealing with stress?
exactly. Well, again, so first thing is I need to get people in the right mind. That literally means to understand, and that means to stand under the principle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not by figuring it out with your head. It needs to descend into a resonance that makes sense. You can't figure this out with your head. So I want to bring it into the right mind because otherwise, anything that I'll tell them, they're just going to counter it with their belief system. Oh, yeah, and they'll have a great conversation. And I often don't continue the conversation. They'll get angry. Oh, you don't listen to me. No, I don't want to listen to you because you're already starting from a point of you're starting from a place that that wasn't in resonance of the absolute. So this is another question I always ask people: is there something that we can observe as being absolute, the absolute truth? How do I know that what you're saying to me is what you really mean to be saying? How do I know that I'm interpreting what you're saying is what you mean to be saying, and that I'm not interpreting it in the way that I think you've said it? Is there such thing as an absolute? What would you say?
You're gonna put me on the spot. I would, I've always believed in being, honest or truthful, but there are some times or some things where, yeah, and I am a very heady person, so I will admit that I always wind up getting in my head. So anybody I have worked with, it takes me time to get out of my head and get out of my own way.
Right, right, right. But there is, normally speaking, I would say no. There isn't, as long as we're still stuck in our conditioning. I can only speak of the absolute uh, when between you and I, we stop superimposing our ideas on reality. There isn't often a true meeting of two minds
Right.
because everybody's gravitating in their own universe. and they're all talking from their own experience. But let's have a conversation without presupposing and without superimposing. And what will happen between you and I is this third force comes into existence, which is just unbelievable to experience. It is so beautiful, which interestingly, just as I was saying this, I was feeling this connection with you now as I was saying this, because now we're going like to this other level. And that's what I'm talking about. I need to bring people to a different awareness of things, right?
Right.
And so I invite everybody when they start working with me is, why don't you just pretend that you don't know anything? Wipe it all off, clean slate. And however, at the same time, do not believe one word that I'm saying to you. Don't believe anything just because I'm telling you that. No, I want to, first of all, you need to be open to receive new information. And then you need to go out there to see if it holds true or not. Right?
So something you just kind of store, and then, later could come back. It's like all of a sudden, then it might resonate.
Yeah. I had this one man, 83 years old. He became one of my dearest friends ever in my life. He just passed away 2-3 years ago. So sad.
Yeah.
But when I met him, he was a multimillionaire. When I met him, he followed every single course that I offered. And he jumped into the breath work. He came to me to the United States on my native Shamanic tour. He did all the individual sessions. At 83 years old, he started also giving breathwork sessions, believe it or not. Everybody was just going to him. And there was not a day where he wouldn't say, Robert, I have never been this happy in my life than ever before. But the reason why I'm bringing him up is he was one of the only people that did exactly what I told him to do without questioning it. He says, if you have a system, you give me the system, I'll follow it, and then I'll see. But within a day, he'd call me back. You're right. You're right. It works. That's the way it works. It was unbelievable. So he'd be sitting next to me in a training. And when we had some of these people in the training, go into resistance, before I could even try to correct them and ask them to let go of the resistance and just, allow this new idea in. It's just something that I'm holding up, a new door that they could walk through to see if it works for them. He would open his mouth. You know what you should do? You should just shut up and listen to him. So he was a great assistant. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's something many struggle with is just being silent, being open and listening.
Right.
It's, because either we're always judging or we're worried about being judged. And yeah, the more open-minded you can be, there's a lot out there that can really, really help.
Laura, it's interesting that I just heard you say being silent. That's what really worked for me. Because when I went to the States, I met so many incredible people in my life. That was when I really opened up. And I just sat there throughout so many courses, and self-help trainings and my shamanic teachers that I met over the years. I just sat there, right, and observed. I just observed. And when I was walking around with different men or women of knowledge, we would hardly talk because it wasn't necessary. And if we talked, there was not a word lost upon us, So I just absorbed. I absorbed. And at some point I was ready. I was like, okay, I need to go back to Europe now. And I need to prove that everything that I've learned here is applicable. In fact, everything I talk about has to be applied in the world. It's a practical matter. Because otherwise, what difference does it make, right? We can go on and talk about things as long as we want. We can read a great book, a spiritual book, and think, okay, I'm spiritual now. I'm going to light my candles and my incense and sit in front of a Buddha, right? That doesn't mean you're spiritually connected, or you've accepted your spiritual heritage and you've become spiritual fluent. Not at all.
Yeah, it's
You
funny how
know,
we
you
relate.
know,
It's funny how we relate to things sometimes, or what images people have set in their head when they hear certain keywords. But
yeah,
Robert,
yeah,
we got about 5 minutes left. So
great.
you have a book coming out, The Transcending the Ordinary. Is it out or is it coming out?
It's coming out.
It's
It's
coming out.
coming out. Yeah, I'm in the process of getting it published. Yeah,
Okay. So
and
can you give us a little bit of a glimpse as to what that means?
it's everything that we're talking about now, and it's pretentious to say that if you read this book and if you follow what I'm telling you to do in that book, then you will achieve ultimate freedom, happiness, and success. And it's beautiful. My personal stories, but my personal stories aren't interesting at all. But it's experiences beyond what we can see, beyond the ordinary that I already had as a child. If it happened to me, these things can happen to anybody. It's something really simple. Time, time and space does not exist according to the quantum physics theory, right?
Right.
Okay, so go on if you have to leave for the weekend, right? While you're driving on the freeway, just in your mind send a message to the person that you want to have them call you. Just do it. The first time I did this, I practiced that on Carlina, my wife. It took her 3 hours, but she did finally call. I was like, my God, it took you 3 hours. Next time, can you, like, open up all the channels, right? And be
Right.
open. We can do this because we are spiritual beings, interdimensional beings having this experience. We only see this much of the light spectrum. 95% of what's out there we do not see. Now, call it a blessing or not, I was exposed to these experiences that I knew as a child and all throughout my young adulthood and up till now. I knew that had nothing to do with this reality, nothing at all. And I have proof, and then that's the beauty of the book. I have proof of all these things that I've experienced because I have actually been able to take photos of things that you cannot see with the naked eye.
Nice. Well,
So
I will say for one, I disagree with you. I think everybody has interesting stories. It's what makes us interesting. And I love when people share them because I believe others can can resonate. Like you said, they're not alone. They may be feeling similar. So I for
you're right.
one, I for one look forward to reading. I know we never think of ourselves as interesting, but yet everybody else will. But it makes us who we are,
Right.
those
That's true.
experiences. And I want to thank you for taking the time and sharing that with everybody and with our audience and being with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really, it was a pleasure.
You bet. We've got about a minute. Do you know about when that book is going to come out, when we can expect it?
Oh God, the day before yesterday. You know,
So anytime soon.
I want to get it out there as soon as I can. Yeah, as soon as I can. And I might just first start with bringing it out as an ebook. Yeah, because I could do that really quickly.
Right. So connect with
Yeah.
Robert and or check out his website, manalifesource.com, where you can find his coaching. And I'm sure when he gets that book out there, which we'll expect it any day now, it will be on his website as well. But Robert, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and sharing that with us today.
You're welcome. And Laura, you get a free copy.
Thank you. I look forward to it because that is something I will definitely read. I always love learning different perspectives, and yes, I look forward to it. So
Great.
thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
And
you again.
yep, everybody, we will see you next time.